People on Facebook Live will be coming live in about 50 seconds from now because it's silent now. And people go, why is it always silent before we begin? And when we start like a minute early, I just want to say that. So we're going to come back live. Hope you'll tune in. We have a really good show. Tackle a lot of interesting, important issues. Thanks for tuning in.
You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance and my fellow progressive patriots. I hope you're having a good night. Thursday, December 6th, live next 3 hours. Lot to cover. A lot of issues. We have three great guests tonight. We're really packing in the guests tonight. If you follow the stock market, yesterday was horrific. Today, it was like grab the Pepto-Bismol and then it got okay. But still, this week alone, from Monday to today, the stock market, the Dow Jones has lost over 1,000 points. In 1 week, it could have even been worse midday today. And since the highs of the stock market in January 2018 to today, the stock market has lost nearly 2,000 points. Usually when things are this bad, Trump files for bankruptcy. But he can't. He's stuck. And we're stuck with him. So we need some humor. Here is Seth Meyers last night making a great point about let's not forget how bad Mike Pence is. I think that should be sort of like a holiday wish. Don't forget how bad Mike Pence is, because I think it's important. Here's Seth Meyers, clip 1.
Vice President-elect Mike Pence insisted that the campaign had no contacts with Russians of any kind, period.
Was there any contact in any way between Trump or his associates and the Kremlin or cutouts they had?
I joined this campaign in the summer, and I can tell you that all the contact by the Trump campaign and associates was with the American people.
Did any advisor or anybody in the Trump campaign have any contact with the Russians who were trying to meddle in the election?
Oh, of course not. And I think to suggest that is to give credence to some of these bizarre rumors that have swirled around the candidacy.
Bizarre rumors around the candidacy? Bizarre rumors were the candidacy. Trump campaign for president like a high school sophomore gossiping at his locker.
Did you hear Barack was born in Kenya and Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK? Pass it on.
And you know, he doesn't get as much credit for it, but Mike Pence is just as slippery of a liar as anyone else in this administration.
And that's a great point. Mike Pence is. And we're going to find out more, even though his name is not even uttered in the discussion about Robert Mueller. Perhaps he was smart enough to see how bad Donald Trump was. And his goal, Mike Pence's goal, as we know, is to impose Christian Sharia law. It's not to work with the Russians or to profit off being in office. He'll be rewarded in the next life by God, I guess. We'll say, oh my God, you imposed the Bible on America. Who would have thought that coming? I thought the whole founding fathers would have taken care of that, but nope. So let's talk about something really important today. And it's getting increasing media coverage. I think it deserves even more. We're going to spend the first hour on it. We're going to have a guest at the bottom of the hour, a state senator-elect from North Carolina, to bring us the bird's eye view of what's going on in the state of North Carolina. And of course, I'm talking about the election fraud going on in North Carolina. And let's be clear, this is not voter fraud. There were no voters who tried to vote who were not legally able to vote. There was no voter who tried to vote 2 or 3 times. This is election fraud. This is far different. This is election fraud perpetrated by the Republican Party, breaking laws in North Carolina to rig the ballot to try to elect a horrible person to Congress from North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. So let's bring everyone up to speed what's going on. A lot of news about it, but let me give you what's happening now and a little background, how we got here. How did we get here? Well, 9th Congressional District pitted a Democrat, Dan McCready, a U.S. Marine Corps vet and solar energy entrepreneur, against Republican Mark Harris, a Baptist minister who said Islam was dangerous and the work of Satan. In another sermon, this Baptist minister Mark Harris, played on themes saying that in Islamic countries, people have no choice but to worship the Antichrist and to bow down to the image of the beast. Thank you, Mark Harris, for calling my religion satanic. He also said the only way there'll be ever peace in the Middle East is if all the Jews and Muslims there all accept Jesus Christ as their savior. And it gets worse. Mark Harris about women, and again, this is the Republican nominee for Congress, said, what's the message to the wives? Well, God instructs all Christian wives to submit to their husbands. Now, ladies, you can rebel against that command, but please understand, you're not rebelling against your husband. Spoiler alert, guess who you're rebelling against? In his view, God. That's right. Women, if you talk, nope, it says in Timothy right there, women should learn in silence. This Mark Harris believes this, and on election night, he won by 900 votes. This guy might be going to Congress. This man who thinks women should be silent and Islam is satanic. That's who we got. That's who they got. So what happened? Election night, he's up by 905 votes. The Democrat Dan McCready actually does give in, and he concedes, saying there's just not enough votes out there left for me to win. And this is a district that Donald Trump won by 12 points in 2016. It came down to 900 points, 900 votes just 2 years later. That's how bad Trump is. That's how horribly bad Trump is. 900 points, a district that Trump had won by 12 points. But what happened is soon after election night, evidence came forward that a consultant for Republican Christian Sharia lover Mark Harris had submitted hundreds of fraudulent absentee ballots. And a few weeks ago, in a stunning development, the bipartisan state board of elections, made up of 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 1 independent, voted unanimously to delay certifying Harris as the winner. They wanted an investigation. And when Republicans are voting for this, that means the evidence is so overwhelming that they cannot hide it. They know that. They're like, oh my God, this is so bad. We better do something. So what is the investigation? What's the fraud we're talking about? Well, here it is. I'm not going to go through county by county, all that. Let's do a summary of it so we all know what's up and get into where we're going from here. At the heart of the investigation is possible election fraud of absentee ballots, all tied to one person, Leslie McCrae Dowless. Leslie McCrae Dowless is his name. He allegedly ran an operation to submit hundreds of fraudulent, or at least ballots illegally, that were absentee ballots. According to various news reports and sworn affidavits, he organized a system which he and various of his staffers would physically go to people's homes in North Carolina, especially rural areas, like in Bladen County and Robeson County, and ask voters for their absentee ballots. And then say, later, we're going to hand these in for you. For example, one voter, a woman, Letitia Montgomery in Elizabethtown, North Carolina, said in a sworn affidavit, some woman came to me and said, I'm here to collect your absentee ballot. In fact, various voters said the exact same thing, that they handed over absentee ballots, some of which had not been sealed yet, had not been fully filled out, but they were told, we're here to collect your absentee ballots. And they collect them. And Ginger Eason, a woman who lives down there, said Leslie McCrae Dowless paid her $100 to pick up absentee ballots in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. So what's the problem, you might be asking? So someone knocked on the door and said, hey, I understand you're going to vote absentee. I'm here to pick up the ballot. And sort of they're making it seem like they're involved with the government, not with the Republican campaign. So what's the problem? This simple. Under North Carolina law, only a voter, a voter's near relative, or a voter's legal guardian is allowed to collect and drop off absentee ballots. It is undisputed what Leslie McCrae Dowless did in collecting these ballots himself and through the people he was paying violated North Carolina election laws. There's no doubt. It's undisputed. This was a violation of North Carolina election laws. Now, the Harris campaign said, we didn't know anything about what Leslie was doing. They said we had hired a company named Red Dome, a consulting company, and they hired Leslie McCrae Dowless. But folks, first of all, this is not a presidential race or even a statewide race. This is for one congressional district. And as the Washington Post and local reporting makes clear, they all knew who Leslie McCrae Dowless was. He was not an unknown entity who just had shown up suddenly in North Carolina's 9th District. This was a guy who had worked on various GOP campaigns. He oversaw this campaign that he was doing of fraudulently getting absentee ballots from a storefront in the district. Everyone knew him. Here's a little bit more about Leslie McCrae Dowless. It's Dowless, by the way, Dowless. I'm probably mangling it with my Jersey accent. A little bit more about Leslie McCrae Dowless. He's got a criminal record. For what, you might ask? He served 6 months in prison after being convicted of what charge? Felony fraud. 6 months in prison for being convicted of felony fraud charge. Also was charged with perjury but never convicted of that. And according to reporting, he's been under scrutiny by state officials since 2016 when allegations first surfaced that he was harvesting, that's a term they use, absentee ballots in violation of North Carolina law. They knew about the guy from 2016. They knew about him in the GOP primary because after the primary, a Republican who lost to Mark Harris accused him of doing this same thing. They all knew this. The Republican Party in North Carolina, and there's no doubt Mark Harris knew what this guy was doing. And we learned more yesterday. Over 1,000 ballots from likely Democratic voters had been destroyed. Likely over 1,000. And these are the words of the Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman on CNN. She said, you're looking at several thousand, possibly 2,000 absentee ballot requests from this election, only 40% turned in. So there is this guy out there collecting absentee ballots. And what the suggestion is that he was not turning it in if he thought they were going to vote Democrat, or if it wasn't sealed, he looked at it and saw it wasn't Democrat and didn't turn it in. Or worse, if it was left blank, he was voting for the person and turning it in. In any event, he was violating North Carolina law knowingly by going around the district collecting people's ballots. No doubt. So the GOP must be outraged. I mean, Donald Trump, election fraud. I'm sure he's tweeting. Wait, let me look at his Twitter. Oh, Donald Trump hasn't mentioned this election fraud by Republicans. And by the way, again, it's undisputed. This is election fraud. This is not voter fraud. There were no voters involved. This is election fraud, an organized attempt by the Republican Party to rig an election to elect a member of Congress. That's what this is. This is far worse than a voter, one person who tried to go and vote twice. That's wrong. That rarely if ever happens. This was a coordinated campaign by the Republican Party to win an election in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. So Trump is silent. What about North Carolina leaders, you're probably asking? At least some of them there are probably going to step up and do the right thing, right? Ha, 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 ha. That's a fake laugh because that's not real. They're not doing that. Dallas Woodhouse, it's got a pretty good name. Dallas Woodhouse sounds like just a complete fake name. It's like some kind of porn star name. Dallas Woodhouse. In any event, he said he's the executive chair of the GOP. Here's what Dallas Woodhouse said in 2016 when the race for governor was so close that between Pat McCrory and the Democrat Cooper who beat him, there was allegations of absentee ballot harvesting, the same thing. And what did he say then, Mr. Woodhouse? 2016, should the election board find that these are absentee ballot mills, he used the term mills, with the purpose of fraudulent voting, those people should go to jail. So he was saying very clearly in 2016, when a Republican was losing a very close race, that if this harvesting and this absentee ballot mill the Democrats were conducting, people have to go to jail. So you're going to expect Dallas Woodhouse to be consistent, but of course not. He's a Republican. Hypocrisy is their lifeblood. What is he saying now? He has downplayed the entire inquiry to the point where he literally said, I'm not kidding, that this was a Democratic conspiracy to steal the election. So in his view, the Republican, who's all known as Republican operative, was actually hired by a Democrat to harvest ballots in violation of North Carolina laws to help the Republican win the election. Literally blaming the Democrats. That's how ridiculous. Woodhouse has also been part of a new fake news scheme to tell people, well, even if you count the ballots missing, outstanding, it doesn't challenge the election results. That's just the definition of fake news. According to Nate Silver and Political Fact, who've gone through it, the gap right now is 907 votes. Well, there are 684 mail-in votes from Bladen County, 680 mail-in votes from Robeson County missing, and 1,600 mail-in ballots that weren't returned from any of the counties that are missing. They don't know where they are. This well exceeds a 900 vote gap. So last Friday, the Board of Elections had a new vote. They voted 7-2. Some Republicans probably got the memo. We got to let this guy in there. He's one of us. He's going to bring Christian Sharia law to North Carolina. 7-2 though, majority voted again not to certify the election results because of what they saw as grave concern of the integrity of the election system. In fact, according to the transcript of their hearing, it said, in light of the claims of numerous irregularities and concerted fraudulent activities related to absentee by mail ballots, that to ensure there's no taint or fraud, they have to have a full hearing, which they're going to do on or before December 21st. Add to that, the last 2 days, the Wake County District Attorney's Office in Raleigh and the State Bureau of Investigation are now all conducting probes. This is a concerted election fraud by the Republicans. So what are the remedies, you ask? That's a great question. So what do you do? Clearly there's election fraud there. Here are the remedies. One is, in North Carolina, as opposed to in our Constitution with Donald Trump, who was the illegitimate president because of election fraud of his own that Michael Cohen testified under oath that he committed, and potentially the impact of the Russians, we have no mechanism under the Constitution to void a presidential election. You can impeach someone, but you can't void it. North Carolina, though, state law is different. In other elections, municipal elections, where there has been rampant fraud, they have ordered a new election. They've never done it with a congressional election, but it's very clear from the local reporting in the Charlotte Observer, who's called for a new election, that they have the power to do it. So that's the number one thing. They should call for a new election. We'll send down UN election observers, Jimmy Carter, everyone, to make sure they don't do it again. If they don't do this, if they don't fully investigate, Nancy Pelosi said something today which is very, very good, and I applaud her for this. She said, we will not seat this guy. We will not seat him in the House come January 3rd, saying, in quote, the House still retains the right to decide who is seated. That is one of the powers of the House of Representatives. She added, worst comes to worst, the House Administration Committee has the power to order a full investigation on their own. So while that investigation is ongoing, they're not going to seat him. Isn't it remarkable? The GOP loves to talk about election integrity and voter fraud. But now we have rampant election fraud that even Republicans on this committee are seeing that it's so egregious, it is so obvious, they voted not to certify a Republican winning an election in the very red state of North Carolina. Trump is silent, and the GOP in the state, the leaders there, are doing everything they can to distract and deflect and lie. Is there nothing sacred any longer to the GOP? They don't believe in democracy. I mean, we're really getting at that point. Look what they're doing. We covered it the last 2 nights, Wisconsin and in Michigan. Democrats win elections fully and fairly. And what do? They want to strip the powers from the governor and the attorney generals going in. They do voter fraud in other states. They make it harder to vote wherever possible. They want to reduce early voting days. They just voted for that in Wisconsin yesterday. They've done it in countless other states. They close election places. They purge you from voting. And now they've gone one step further, widespread election fraud in the 9th Congressional District in North Carolina. So I agree with Dallas Woodhouse, the GOP. If any Republicans are involved in this, they should go to jail. And do not use the term voter fraud when discussing this. This is election fraud, because at some point Trump will try to use this, even though Republicans committed the crime, to say, hey, look at that. There was voter fraud. No. Voter fraud is when some voter tries to perpetrate a fraud. This is not that. The voters were doing everything above board. They were lied to by a Republican operative for the Harris campaign who came to their door and said, I'm here to collect the ballots. To people in the rural counties in North Carolina, probably nice people, welcoming people, people who think that if you come up to their door and knock on it and you look like them, you can trust them. But they were not. They were there with ill intentions. And with their corrupt motives, they took their ballots and no doubt did not cast them. And I say you can't quantify how many votes were lost. You must have a new election if you still believe in democracy in North Carolina. But no matter what, I love the backstop. Nancy Pelosi says if they're not going to do that, if they're not going to fully investigate it, they're not going to seat this guy. That's what happens by winning the House. So when we won the House, we also won this seat, or at least we won a big thing for democracy. Because if Paul Ryan and the GOP were there, they'd seat him in a heartbeat. We all know that. Again, this is the price for all of our efforts, for all the work, for all the doors people knocked on, phone calls they made, money they donated, tweets they sent out, posts on Facebook, conversations they had for 2 years. Here's another payoff for it. We are defending and protecting democracy. We are the patriots. Truly. We truly are. We are the only thing that stands between a Republican control of this nation, which does not believe in democracy fully and fairly. They believe in it like a banana republic. It's up to us to continue this battle. We had a huge victory in November. I think we're going to win this if there's a special election. The nation will focus on it. Maybe the people in the district will get to know Dan Harris. Maybe they'll like the Christian Sharia law guy. Maybe. I can't tell you. But maybe they won't. So let's take a break. Come back. We're going to try to squeeze in a call or two. Then we have the state Senate-elect on from North Carolina to give us a view from North Carolina. We're going to take calls. 866-997-4748. Be right back. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius